Alright, let's get into this video. Welcome to the channel, Higher Self Talk. I'm your host, Mike Bono. We're going to get into part two, Are We Modern Day Slaves by my boy Santos Banache. Link in the description. Make sure you like, share, and don't forget to subscribe. Let's go.
Let's get into this. What I'm going to do now is show you how the courts work. It's all ecclesiastical. Okay, and this is very sad, but we need to know this. It's cruel. It's absolutely cruel, the poor young boys that go in to court with a lawyer. The lawyer's working for the Cestui Que Vie accounts. The prosecution is, the clerk is, and the judge is. And you bring a lawyer with you to prove that you're a ward of the state, that you're lost at sea. So you need a Cestui Que Vie account, someone to manage all your wealth. They've stolen it. A court room. So let's make a little courtroom here. We've got the judge here, we've got the clerk over here, and you and the prosecution, okay? Every trust has a trustee, a executor, and a beneficiary. Okay? That's the owner. This guy executes, sign. And this guy's the beneficiary. That's you. You're the beneficiary of the Cestui Que Vie trust. Right? Now, why they bring you into court is because they want to create a constructive trust with the presumption, with the knowing that you're already a slave of the system by virtue of your name. That's why the judge, the first thing he says is, what is your name? For the record, can we have your name? He wants that name. The moment you give him that name and agree to be that name, you bring life to the Cestui Que Vie trust, and he's got you, because he wants to change roles with you. The clerk here is the trustee, not the judge. This guy's the administrator of the trust. He's just the administrator, the judge. You are the beneficiary. This guy, the prosecution, I should have put the prosecution inside the circle, is executor. I think I've confused that, but it doesn't matter. He's the executor. He's got all the liability. He's the one that got the writ created to get you into court, the summons. Because what they want you to do is appear in court, accept that you are the name. Oh, we've found the beneficiary, right? And then he's going to swap roles with you and be the beneficiary and get you to execute your own sentence. Now, if you think I'm stretching that a little bit, basically everything that goes on in court is the sacrament of penance. What's the sacrament of penance? We've forgotten. But these guys, these guys here well knew what the sacrament of penance was, because that's what brought them in there. The sacrament of penance is, you're a dirty, rotten sinner. We're all sinners. Sin. But God's merciful. Oh, he's lovely. He forgives. So you've got this treasury of credits up there in heaven. What we're going to do is we're going to administer those credits. We're going to administer them, and it's penance. And you pay. And the system works on the confession. It's all the confession. You go to court to confess your sins and pay for them. That's penance. Every single thing in court runs as a church does, and confession, and you go in there to confess and accuse yourself. Penance is a sacrament. In the new law instituted by Christ, in which forgiveness, this comes from the Catholic Church. Have a listen to this. This is from I've just ripped this off the Catholic Wiki Encyclopedia on the net last night. Of the new law instituted, penance is a sacrament of the new law instituted by Christ, in which forgiveness of sins committed after baptism is granted through the priest's absolution to those who with true sorrow confess their sins and promise to satisfy for the same. It is called a sacrament, not simply a function of ceremony, because it is an outward sign instituted by Christ to impart grace to the soul. As an outward sign, it comprises the actions of the penitent in presenting himself to the priest and accusing himself of his sins, and the actions of the priest in pronouncing absolution and imposing satisfaction. The whole procedure is usually called, from one of its parts, confession. That's what you're doing when you go to court. I'll show you this. It's all in the wording. It's still there. It's in the wording. Look at the words and there it is. You watch. Because it is a judicial process in which the penitent is at the accuser, the person accused, and the witness. Remember this, because that's how the Inquisition ran, and that's how courts work. It's exactly the same thing. It's morphed, but it hasn't changed in its nature. So you become the person accused, the accuser, and the witness. They're saying it. While the priest pronounces judgment and sentence. The judge. The grace conferred is deliverance from guilt and sin, and in the case of mortal sin, from its eternal punishment, hence also reconciliation with God, justification. That's the sentence. Finally, the confession is made not in the secrecy of the penitent's heart, nor to the layman as friend and advocate, nor to the representative of human authority, but to a duly ordained priest with requisite jurisdiction and with the power of the keys, the power to forgive sins which Christ granted to his church. Now I'm going to talk about another thing here, indulgences. Remember I mentioned those from the same encyclopedia. In Catholic theology, an indulgence is the full or partial remission of temporal punishment due for sins which have already been forgiven. Of course, God forgives, but you're a sinner, and we'll manage that for you. That's all it is. That's all it is, guys, and they are the priests of Baal. The temple Ba is Baal. Baal is Saturn. It's the church of Satan. They're the Grim Reapers in black. Excuse me for that. In Catholic theology, an indulgence is the full or partial remission of temporal punishment due for sins which have already been forgiven. The indulgence is granted by the Catholic Church after the sinner has confessed and received absolution. The belief is that indulgences draw on the treasury of merit accumulated by Christ's abundantly meritorious sacrifice on the cross and the virtues and penances of the saints. They are granted for specific good works and prayers. They've monetized sin. And this was developed by the Jesuits in the 1500s with the backing of the Venetians who created the Jesuits. The Jesuits rule the world. They do. A court is an oratory. That's where you confess. Just look at these words. Have a look at these words. A clerk. What's a clerk? What does it sound like? A cleric. The judge is an ordinary. What's an ordinary? An officer of the church who by reason of office has ordinary power to execute the church's laws. That's what the judge is, an ordinary. A case. What's the case? We're going to hear a case today. Hear a case? Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Yes, tell me what you've done. That's what it is. That's why you will never bring to life that name when you go to church, when you go to Baal's church, when you go to court. Cortio, which means, oh God, I forgot the name. Cortio. Well, it's an oratory. Writ. Is it two T's? No. Got it wrong here. Comes from, well, there's no W in Latin. It doesn't exist. Well, it used to. It's a rite. It's a religious rite. Comes from, well, there's no W in Latin. It doesn't exist. Well, it used to. It's a rite. It's a religious rite. Because the, let me say this correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong. The scribe and a notary. What's a scribe and a notary? He makes the writs. He puts the curse on you, the summons, whatever it is, a bill, Telstra. It comes from a writ, right? And the scrivener, scribe, verne, from verne Latin, is, guess what? Our little friend, the indulgence. That's an indulgence. The writer of indulgences. They're telling you in your face, and we don't see it. A warrant. What's a warrant? Well, it seals the writ. It seals the writ. So it indemnifies the king and the queen from being sued if they lose. That's what a warrant is. Warrant comes from seal of the writ and is a form of indulgence. Hearing. Well, I've already gone through that. It's a confession. That's what a hearing is. Isn't this sick? Don't you think? It makes you sick. It makes you sick. And that's what's going on. And it's run by insane people. Oh, what's sentence? It's penitence. Penance. Absolution. Prison or a fine. Prosecutor. Prosecutus. 3 words. Prosecutus. The skin. Self. Present. It's representing one's own flesh, or a person who is claiming to be you, making a self-accusation. So those warrants that come to your house or whatever, they are prosecuting you, right? So they're claiming to be you. They're just using that name on the trust. Attorney, turn over. Attorney tells you, I turn you over. That's what it means. You bring an attorney with you. Thanks, mate. Yeah, you help me. Come on, man. Let's go and see the judge, and tell him what to say. You tell him, and guess what? You find yourself in prison, and you look at your attorney. And he goes, "Well, I tried. I said they work for the same guy. They're all getting commissions. That's why the prosecution is always required to bring their checkbook to court, because if they can't get you to swap roles with him, you become the trustee. He becomes the beneficiary. And get you to prosecute your own sentence. If they can't do that, they bear the liability. They're going surety for it. They're prosecuting. So they're bringing the liability. They're charging your trust account. So in a beautiful, on the websites that I showed you, on this one here, Spiritual Economics Now, you can go there to a page. It's beautiful. Please read this. This is the best 5 pages I think you'll ever read by Franco Collins. Right? All those websites are linked to my website, the Top One Universal Truth School, or you can go straight to them. But if you go here, you'll find the links. You can get to all of those. And in here is the information that Serena's going to share with you next about how to collapse these trusts and how to create ecclesiastical deed polls and to create a new birth certificate. That's called a live born record. Right? And I'll have a new trust number, and I have a universal, not a Roman date for my birthday. Anyway, Serena will be making that a little bit clearer. What do you say in court? Court. Who's who and what to say. This is what Franco Collins suggests, and I'm going to finish up with that and tidy up. Serena will do her bit after we have a break, and then we can do some question and answers after that. All right? And believe me, Serena's got some beautiful things to share with you, because she is really, really leading in Victoria and spearheading this technology. So. But the most important thing, guys, is to get on here. There are audio files. You can listen to, there's about 16 audio files on talkshoe.com, is it? Or .org? It's .com. You'll find it, there's a link to it here in these. There are links to it. But you can download Franco Collins' audio files and learn all this. I've just been learning this in the last 3 months. This is what to say. We all know from our indoctrination, programming and schooling that judges are impartial and have sworn an oath to this effect. This means he must not favour either plaintiff or defendant, but our experience reveals that he does indeed favour the plaintiff, indicating a glaring conflict of interest. That the prosecutor, judge and clerk all work for the state, the owner of the Cestui Que Vie Trust. So, as the case is not about justice, it is about administration of a trust. They all represent the trust owned by the state, and if we are beneficiary, the only two positions left are trustee and executor. There's only three positions connected to these trusts. And the state, the Vatican, owns them. So if you detect the judge's impartiality, although I doubt the case will get this far, you might want to let him know that you know this. If you consider court as entertainment, and if you can stand the evil emanating from its offices, the fear, the angst oozing from the walls, and the treacherous atmosphere, then go. Knowing that under trust law, we cannot be trustee or executor of a trust, while being beneficiary, as that would be a conflict. The position of beneficiary may lack clout, but the other positions hold liability. Remember? He brings the writ, he brings the case to court, the hearing, come and confess, you've been accused, talk to the judge, talk to the priest of bail, he's dressed in black there all for you, monetising sin, pay, because what they do is they dip into our Cestui Que Vie accounts because they've got our numbers. There's three numbers: birth certificate number, tax file number, and social security number. They are the three major numbers. There are other numbers. They're the numbers that follow you around all your life for 75 years. That's why they demand that you retire before 75, because these birth certificates, they only run 75 years. Because